audio.
All right, hello, how are we all doing today? Today I want to introduce a young author, poet, sometimes rapper, by the name of Nate Marshall. Just to give you a little history on Nate, he is from the south side of Chicago, from the Pullman neighborhood. He attended high school at Whitney Young. He went to college, Vanderbilt University, and went on to get a master's in creative writing at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Since then, he has been published in Poetry Magazine, New Republic, Indiana Review. He is also currently working for young Chicago authors, and he's teaching a class at Northwestern as well. I don't know if any of you have seen this or read any of the poems from this. I'm almost all the way through it and have enjoyed every one of them. I found them to be powerfully honest and real, and there's really not much more you can ask of a poet than that. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Nate Marshall.
Hey guys, you all right? So my name is Nate Marshall, and I write poems and things and stuff, and whatever. So, yeah. So, I know that typically, often the way this sort of happens is like, I stand up and I speak at you a while, maybe I like read some things, and then there's like a 10 to 15 minute question and answer period. But I think that it's a little more interesting if we can like engage with each other the whole time. So I'm gonna so at any point, like if after a poem or after I'll check in with you all every poem or every couple of poems, and just like, if you have questions or you have thoughts, either about the poems or about just my experience as a writer, feel free to chime in, to raise your hand, and we can and we can make this sort of like a reciprocal conversation. Is that cool? Cool. Are there any questions to start off? I've done absolutely nothing. You know nothing about me, except that my face is outside. But whatever. Yeah.
How old are you?
How old am I? Old enough. I'm 27. Yeah. I teach beginning poetry workshop. Yeah. No. Yeah, I might rap. Because all rapping is like saying a poem rhythmically in a particular way, right? So yeah. Oh man, who's my favorite rapper? These are the real hardcore questions. That is a really difficult question for me. I don't know. I think my favorite right now, maybe, like at this moment, is a guy named Sabo, he's from the west side of Chicago. He's been on like some of Chance the Rapper's music, and he has an album out called The Bucket List Project, and that album is incredible. So he's my favorite right now, but not of all time. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna read something. All right, cool. Great. So, actually, I'll just start with this. So when I was, one of my favorite poets is a guy named Langston Hughes. Maybe you've heard of him. He has this poem called The Motto that I like. So I'm gonna, I'll start with that and I'll go into something else and I'll just follow along. So the motto is this: I play it cool. I dig all jive. That's the reason I stay alive. The motto as I live and learn is dig. Dug in return. I play it cool, I dig all jive, that's the reason I stay alive. The motto as I live and learn is dig and be dug in return. I play it cool, I dig all jive, that's the reason I stay alive. The motto and I live and learn is dig and be dug in return. Let me interject for a minute. Seems the ways to raise the crowd is infinite, a million ways to make the beat complete. So I'ma try and compete to speak unique. So first to start, gotta kick it Petrarch. So people know I'm ambitious with the craft. This is for professors who are suspicious of the raps. They should understand there's a rigor to the art. Please watch how I noun verbs make a new word. I deems listless spits. I kick it to nerd. You heard the flow is bluebird, pretty and fly. Even MFA committees can't lie. When they give me that degree, I'll happily stop letting y'all download the raps for free. I'ma publish them as poems on the Amazon. Put it on your Kindle, but don't get back to me. I play it cool. I dig all jive. That's the reason I stay alive. The motto as I live and learn is dig and be dug in return. I just like pretending to sing. It makes me happy. All right, cool. So, has anyone ever Googled their own name? Right? Yeah, that's sort of a weird thing to do. I do it, so no judgment. I have a Google alert on my name, so I just get emails about my name, which is weird. But sometimes when you Google your own name, you find things you don't quite expect, right? Or people you don't quite expect. So I Googled myself a while back, and I found this cat, also named Marshall. This person named Marshall, and he was. We're a little bit different, and a little bit the same also. So he's a white supremacist. So. You could probably make a Venn diagram about what we have in common and not, So I wrote this poem for him. This poem is called Nate Marshall is a White Supremacist from Colorado, or Nate Marshall is a poet from the South Side of Chicago, or I love you, Nate Marshall. When I first made my name Nate, I was just a boy at summer camp, looking for cool in the muggy shadows. And so, when the white boy snipped Nathaniel to just a touch of the tongue to the mouth roof, it seemed to me a religious moment, a new confirmation as okay. This was 2000, and you had been Nate Marshall for decades by then. Years later, I find you buried in a Google search of myself, and I follow you silently for the next year like a high school crush. I tell my students about you, the day when we wonder who we could have been if privilege hadn't put us in a college classroom. I tell my ex about you in bed, and it's convenient that there's this other Nate Marshall to be the liar lying there this time. I see your failed run for office, and I think about how your ties to white supremacists spelled your demise. The Black History Month paper I wrote on the Black Panthers in 3rd grade wouldn't color me radical enough, and I am ashamed I've never been pushed out of the spotlight for loving my people too much. Your day job is roofing, and I just watch HGTV in hotels. You are the truer amongst us, Nate. You, peddler of propaganda and seller of shingles. Can you show me how to love what you love? Every time I've said, what's good, nigga? It's possible we've matched our mouths symmetrical around the 2 G's in the middle. I won't lie to you, Nate Marshall, or to myself, Nate Marshall. I too have hated a nigga and lived to tweak the tail. I too have sat suspicious in my basement, wondering who was coming for my country. I too have Googled myself and found a myself I despise. I see you, Nate Marshall, and now you've left Twitter after I told my followers to tell you that they loved you and your book and your commitment to black people. And I feel you, Nate Marshall. I've left places and loves when they told me they loved a Nate Marshall I didn't recognize. There's just another dude with my name on Twitter just popping off. It's wild. It's really weird. How you guys feeling? Any questions? Anything? Yes, sir.
Do you still follow the Marshall, or is he just off?
Oh man. So okay, that's a good question, right? So I don't follow. So I found Nate Marshall, right? And I was like, oh man. And I found him. I read an article about him. I was like, that's crazy. And I found him on Twitter, and I didn't ever follow him because I thought that would be too I don't know. I just didn't follow him. But I kept track of his page, and I sort of would keep up with what he was saying, what he was talking about. And I don't know why I did this. There was no real reason. But eventually, right, he left Twitter at a particular point, and then he came back in this November. But his page is now locked. It's now private, so I can't see what he's doing. I should follow him, but he probably wouldn't. He probably wouldn't. I mean, I don't. I think that he has a particular club in mind of which I might not be a part. So I don't know if he would accept my follow. Maybe I'll try to follow him and see what happens. Other questions? Okay, so that's a good question. So, randomly, so I found this article that was about, he ran for the state house in Colorado, and he got pushed out of the race. He was on talk radio and a sort of prominent conservative voice in state talk radio in Colorado. But they basically someone found out and exposed that he was tied and had given a bunch of money to all these various white supremacist organizations. So yeah, he got pushed out. He had to drop out of the race because of that. And that was the first thing I learned about it. I was like, yo, that's very different than what I do on my day-to-day. I'm just writing poems and talking to high schoolers. So yeah. Other. Cool. I'm gonna read some of these. All right. So my all right. So when I was growing up, we had this phrase that we would always say. The phrase was "wuwap de bam," which kind of doesn't mean anything, but it also means everything. It's one of these weird phrase, but it basically just means so on and so forth, or this, that, and the third. So this poem is called "wuwap de bam." By the time you get this transmission, we'll already be off this planet, or on the bus heading downtown, scratch bombing our last will and testament into some commuter's view. Here's the thing. Everything you don't know is intentional, either by you or by us. Don't act like you're mad you can't hear the words we radio edited out. You remember that scene in White Men Can't Jump when the question of listening and hearing is raised? You knew then there could be nothing between us except rhythmic static. You know our whole dialect is a raw hide stretched into a hand clap, a record scratch, a jive so unintelligible it must be genius. You've seen us leaning against the whole world with one foot up, cocked back like a prayer. You've seen us in your corporate offices creeping in black as something black and live. We know your slang too, better than you. We invented that and gave it to you for whatever winter equinox holiday you prefer. We know African American is how you say the N-word in a boardroom. We're hip to your myriad of words for desertion, or starvation, or genocide. Even our conversation filler is a conjuring. The dark cousin of your whatchamacallit and thingamajig. Our whole steed's a code you can't break, can't even dim, can't fade in the least. And we see you, finna try. This poem is called Mama Says. Mama says you gotta go to the head doctor. Says all this brooding is gonna kill you or her or somebody. All this kill in you and your temper short and you ready to firecracker at the slightest. This ain't healthy, she said. You fight her wish. You fine, you say. Fine as everybody else. You just 16 and man in progress and in the process of hardening into survival. But she pull rank on you. Talk to the doc or quit the basketball team. And man ain't man and shy with no ball, so you bend. You go to the shrink, and there's a head test. It asks about fire and fantasizing, about burning or murder or hearing voices or rape and other synonyms, and you know the right answers have to be the ones that ain't crazy. And that is crazy, because a sick person wouldn't be able to decipher sickness on the Scantron. And you talk to the shrink, and he's a nice old white guy, and you're not really talking about much, but he's okay. So you don't feel as bad going back the second time. 2. When Michelle Obama was asked about her fear of racists killing her husband now that he was running for president, she says, he's a black man on the South Side. He can die any day, at the gas station or the grocery store. The shrink suspects you are learning the same lesson. 3, he diagnoses you with fear because your boy down the block just got smacked baseball bat to his temple, and the homie you used to play ball with at the park got shot the year before, and that's something you gotta adjust to, get used to. This body dropping rhythm, blood percussion, heartbeats hitting b-boy freeze. The shrink is nice about it and says, you're clear, you don't have to come back. 4, you quit basketball that year because tryouts is the same day your granny dies from cancer. At the funeral, you don't cry. You're clear, you're fine. There's nothing wrong. I'm from that side of the city, closest to Mississippi, where people hear on the news the views is never pretty, it's true. Give something to prove that my story is fact. Wiretap rap according to black, that escape slave. Never take fades, old school, Atlantic type trade when I make waves. Got some brothers who discovered that the fake pays. Never mad at a worker for what he ain't made. Me, I study the means of production. While I crack heads with the meanest production, see the flow's function is to slip. The flow's function is to kick slick, subverse in the suburbs, convert rich kids, slice it when I write this. Joke rap, do pen, punchline, absurd, conceal truth and work we do win. Trap beats you in, nod heads, you just cosign movement. Questions? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go.
When did you first get into poetry?
When did I first get into poetry? Right when I was right about 12, 13. I got interested in writing poetry and rapping, and then I had a teacher who sort of pushed me to pursue those interests. Yeah. Go ahead.
How do you deal with writer's block? Is it ever
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, writer's block. So, raise your hand if you like consider yourself a writer or an artist, or like you write, you rap, you create. Cool. So of those, and actually just for everyone, like, raise your hand if you've ever like had writer's block. You've ever like experienced that, right? Right. So a lot of us, in some ways, like more of us that even consider ourselves writers, right? That is even sometimes why we don't consider ourselves, why we don't call ourselves writers, is because we feel like a writer's block. I think for me, I think about it like this, right? My father, my pops, he works for the city of Chicago. He works for the water department. He is a truck driver. So when a water main breaks in the city, they have to repair something. He drives the crew. He drives the truck that takes the crew to where they gotta go to repair that thing, right? So he doesn't get to like wake up in the morning to say, yo, I got truck drivers block. I think I'm gonna sit this one out, y'all. But good luck with your showers and food preparation and things, right? He doesn't get to do that, right? Your teachers don't get to say like, yo, I got teacher's block. I'm just not feeling it today. Sit this one out, guys, right? So for me, part of what I think about is that I think that writing, if one is to take it seriously, is work and should be approached with that kind of seriousness. And that doesn't mean it'll always be easy, right? I know like the teachers and the adults in the room can attest, like there's a lot of times you show up at work and you're like, yo, I really wish I was not here right now. I'm really not feeling, I really like would rather be like playing with my kid or still in bed or like on the golf course or whatever. But part of like what it means to work, I think, is to have a commitment to the craft of doing that thing every day, right? To be about it. So that is the way that I try to approach my work. So even when I like don't feel like I have a good idea or I don't feel like I have something that's really exciting me to write, I still sit down and do the work and I still sit down and try to write. Because a lot of times those are the days that surprise me. Like those are the days when I write the poem about like the dude that I like have randomly sort of like paid attention, like randomly been following on Twitter because he has my same name. Like that's not the idea that comes to you on the day you're really excited about writing. That's the day when you're like reaching. You have to really think about what in all of my experiences, what in all the things that I know of the world, can I like chip off today to do something productive. Right. What inspires me? A lot of, the world. I think I try to be someone that like is always paying attention to what's going on around me and is always drawing inspiration and drawing like possible, just like possible sources of inspiration. Because I think that's one of the ways that you fight something like writer's block is to be disciplined in how you observe the world, to be like a voracious watcher of things and people. I'll tell you one thing that's inspiring me right now is I'm thinking a lot about like language, a lot about like, so specifically a lot about like slang and about like a lot of the language that I hear my students using or that like I grew up using and how that language is like so exciting and so vibrant. And we do a lot of work, not always, but often I think in academic institutions we do a lot of work to stamp that language out of young people. Because young people like have to perform in like traditional spaces, so we tell them that language isn't acceptable. So I've been thinking a lot about like re-immersing myself in that language and like, just sort of falling back in love with it. So.
What do you mean when you're talking about shrinks?
Say it again?
What do you mean when you're talking about shrinks?
Shrinks. Word. So that poem. So I'll tell you. So that poem is about this particular moment in my life. When I was 16, both my grandmothers passed away, and then a bunch of other people in my life passed away, and I was like really like mad and hurt and sad, and just like kind of jacked up. So my mom like made me go to a psychiatrist. And I like, so that poem is sort of about the experience for me of like what it was to like pursue that path. And I like that poem and I like reading it. And I think it was important in the book because I think too often many people, especially young people, especially people of color, especially men, too often have like a lot of hesitance. Like we feel like we can't go and ask for help, and we can't like do things to take care of ourselves and take care of our like mental well-being. So I think, so to me that poem is important, just to like let people know that like this is something that I have pursued in my life and still pursuing in many ways, so that like it hopefully does some work of like destigmatizing. Yeah.
Do you ever get burnt out by writing?
Yes, yes, I do. So I work for an organization called Young Chicago Authors, which is a great organization, and I came up in it as a student. And right now we're about to start a 5-week festival called Loud of the Bomb Poetry Slam. That's incredible. It's 5 weeks, over 90 events, and it's so many poems and so much art and so much creativity that after that, like after the finals is March 18th, I know after that I'm gonna have to like not listen to anyone say anything rhythmically at all for like a good month. I'm gonna like only like watch ESPN and like Scandal, and that's it. So yeah, I definitely get burnt out and have to like, take my break so I can come back to it with fresh eyes and be excited. That's a good question. Go ahead. Say it again? Yeah, a ton of specific artists and albums. So in terms of poets, I'll say inspired me, Gwendolyn Brooks, Martina Spada, who's a Puerto Rican poet, Suji Kwak Kim, who's a Korean-American woman poet, the essayist and novelist James Baldwin, Sandra Cisneros, who's a poet and novelist, and just sort of general like, badass Chicana writer. Trying to think in terms of like music artists. I love Jimi Hendrix. Like the album "Are You Experienced" is my joint. Muddy Waters is like it's an old blues man who I love, and Howlin' Wolf, and like a lot of music that came out of Chess Records in like the early 20s and 30s and 40s. Like that music I love. Rappers, let me think. Jay-Z, Nas, Black Thought from the Roots, Pharoah Monch, Chance the Rapper, No Name, Jean Grey, Mos Def, a lot of people, right? Ton of people, ton of albums. Yes. So to that question, I'm gonna read a poem. Do you guys, is anyone a fan of Chance the Rapper? Okay, cool. So he has on his not on the most recent project Coloring Book, but on the one before that, Acid Rap, there is like I think it's the song Paranoia, right? He has this thing called on that song he has at the end there's this thing where he sings he says like basically the lyrics of it are talking about how like in Chicago, and this is not unique to Chicago, but in many like major cities, when the weather gets warmer, there are spikes in crime, and how like sort of warm weather, like beautiful weather, like has this sort of has this dark sort of undercurrent of like, oh man, like bad things might happen now, right? So it's the part where he's like, so everybody dies in the summer, so pray to God for a little more spring, right? So I heard that poem, or that song, and I wrote this poem kind of in response to it. This poem is called Indian Summer. For those of y'all who don't know, Indian Summer is like, it's like an old phrase that means like when it's unseasonably warm outside, right? So like if it's like 65 degrees in February for like a week, that's Indian Summer. Heat is a cruel mother, pushes us out into the neighborhood to play and burn. The sun sit up top like an OG on a tall stoop fresh out from Stateville, nervous around four walls. The clouds circle vulture or blunt session or after school fight above. We out here, playing with one ear gaping, both eyes low. Summertime and dying is easier. June is jazz or funeral dirge. July, thick thump of a rap record or dull thud of hood cliche. The weatherman says, forecast is beautiful, and sunny, clear. That's a cloud in our sky. Your play cousin got good hair, Indian in her family. Maybe she can pray for rain. I'm glad you asked that question. The thing about music, right? I'll read this poem. This is called "The Break," and it references a guy named Grandmaster Flash, who's like a DJ. He's one of the founding fathers of hip hop. If you know, like, he was the DJ of the group that made the song "The Message," which you probably heard, but you may not recognize it. The song goes like, "Don't push me, 'cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head." Ha ha ha. But it's an old song. It's cool. You should listen to it. It's on Spotify. Whatever. This is called "The Break," right? The break is the place in the funk record everybody goes crazy. If the DJ is smart, the break is built longer. The break is hip hop. Grandmaster Flash took the break, stretched the break, pulled it apart like silly putty, plastered the party in. The break is where the drums take center, stage. The break is the center. The break is the party. The break is built from thrown out equipment, unused grooves. The break is struggle. The break is the place your sister doesn't have. The break is the eviction. The break is moving back in with moms. The break is the break up. The break is garbage bags of your sister's belongings you find in your room the day you come back from summer camp. The break is the party you want to have for your sister. The break is your sister not being only yours anymore. Your niece is the break. The job applications are the break. Listening to Lil' Kim and Biggie while your sister braids your niece's hair is the break. The break is the job your sister hates. The break is the apartment hunt. The arguments between moms and your sister. The break, the apartment coming through. The garbage bags absent from your room. Other questions? I kind of like thinking about music.
When you write, do you think about the performance, or is that like stuff that comes after?
Sure. When I write, do I think about the performance? Yes and no, right? So the thing that we have to remember, and that I tell my students about poetry, is that poetry is a very old form, right? It's maybe one of the oldest forms of language that we actually have. But the writing down of poetry is quite new, right? The notion of like a book of poetry, the fact that like this thing is a thing that exists, is a very contemporary concept, like the last few hundred years, right? And there's reasons for that, whatever. But so I think of poetry as, of course, as like a written form and as a written art form, but also as an art form that is about people standing in front of each other and saying something, right? It's about like that sort of that physical connection, and I think that poems bear some weight, bear some responsibility to live in the air. So when I write, I'm not like sitting there thinking like, yeah, and then I'm gonna like gesture with my hand like this, and the people will know that I really mean it because of this. I don't do that. But I do think about the sound, and I do, part of my writing process is reading my stuff out loud, right? So every poem that I write, I read. I also have to like say it out loud as I'm editing to figure out, is this the right wording? Is this awkward? Does it make sense, right? Just in the same way that I look at a page, I look at line breaks, and I think about the meter of it. I'm also like doing that, like verbally. something really weird and kind of crazy that I do. In order to finish any book, I have to read when I'm writing a book, I have to read the whole thing out loud in one sitting. So when I finished this, I was living in Michigan at the time, and I had 2 roommates, and I'm sure they thought I was crazy because I was just in my room all night, just like da 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 ha ha, and then because in doing those like read-throughs, I like make notes to myself, and I'm like thinking about how things flow into each other, and I'm like making myself laugh, and I'm like, oh yeah, got it, and I'm like crossing out words like ha ha, now it's hot, and I'm sure they were like, this he done lost his mind. He has gone crazy. But I'm not crazy that much. Yeah, good question. Oh yeah, go. Oh, who's my favorite slam poet? That's an interesting question. So I struggle with what that means. So when I say that, what I mean is like, I think that people like make a distinction between like a performance poet or a slam poet or a spoken word artist and like a poet. And I don't know that, like, I don't really understand why that distinction exists. It's one that doesn't make sense to me, and I think is often like a code word for saying like, this person is young, or this person is of color, or this person is like interesting to watch, right? Like I think a lot of poets who like come out of the academy read their poems very boring and very quiet and like little voices like this. So when someone like actually says a poem like they might have lived once in the last like few decades,